To humiliate me, my boss handed me a neon green turtle plush and dropped it onto my desk like it was a verdict. "Jack," Veronica said, "sweet as poison, I got you a little something." The turtle had a stupid grin stitched across its face. Someone in a warehouse had tried to make it cute. Veronica had taken a Sharpie and made it cruel. Across the shell, in thick black letters, she'd written one word big enough for half the office to read. Cuck. A few heads lifted over cubicle walls. A couple of people went perfectly still, like they weren't sure if they were allowed to breathe. I leaned back in my chair and stared at it, then up at her. "What's this supposed to be?" Veronica's red lips curled. "Just a reminder of your place." Her eyes flicked to the corner of my screen, my calendar, my campaign report, my neatly stacked files. Anything tidy about me seemed to annoy her more than anything messy ever could. "Heard about your girlfriend," she said, loud enough that the nearest desks would catch every word. Or should I say ex-girlfriend? "Cheating on you with some finance guy." Ouch. A ripple went through the office, soft, nasty, hungry. The kind of reaction people pretend they don't have. 2 days ago, I'd found out the woman I'd been building a future with was building a side life behind my back. I'd spent one night staring at my ceiling and another night staring at the text messages like they were written in a language that could still change if I blinked hard enough. Veronica knew. Of course she knew. In 5 years at this marketing firm in Chicago, I'd learned one thing with absolute clarity: Veronica didn't miss a weakness. She collected them. "This turtle is slow," she continued, tapping the plush with a manicured nail, "pathetic, always hiding in its shell. Just like you." Someone muttered, "That's cold," and another person shushed them like they were watching a crime unfold. My jaw tightened until my molars ached. Not because I wanted to scream, but because screaming was exactly what she wanted. Veronica had been trying to bury me since day one. The reason was simple and stupid. 5 years ago, I'd walked into my interview and outperformed her boyfriend. I didn't know it was her boyfriend at the time. I didn't know Veronica existed. I just knew I wanted the job, and I wanted it badly enough to show every inch of my ability in that room. I got hired. He didn't. They broke up shortly after. People always said it was because he couldn't handle losing. Veronica told herself a different story, one where I'd stolen her perfect future with my arrogance and my luck and my fake charm. In her version, I didn't earn anything. I took it from her. She carried that story like a torch, and when she climbed the ladder fast enough to become VP, she didn't use her height to see farther. She used it to step on me. I'd survived because I worked too hard to remove. My metrics were clean. My campaigns performed. My clients renewed. I kept receipts, documented decisions, and watched my tone like a hawk watches a field mouse. One HR complaint. One angry outburst. One moment of weakness, and she'd have what she'd been waiting for. So I looked at the turtle, then at her, and I smiled like it didn't land. "Cute," I said, voice calm. "Thanks for the concern, Veronica. I'll be sure to return the favor." Her smile sharpened. "I'll be waiting." She turned on her heel and walked away like she hadn't just carved a word into the air above my desk. When the day ended, I grabbed the plush, stuffed it into my bag, and took it home. Not because I wanted it. Because I didn't want it sitting on my desk like a flag planted in my humiliation. I didn't want her walking by it every day, satisfied. I didn't want my coworkers' eyes sliding to it whenever they remembered my life was a joke to the woman who signed their performance reviews. At my apartment, I tossed it onto my couch and stared at it for a long minute. It was ridiculous. A cheap gag gift. A weapon made of polyester and spite. I told myself I'd throw it out. But when I picked it up by the shell, something made my hand pause. The plush didn't feel like cheap stuffing. It wasn't scratchy. It wasn't stiff. It was warm. Not fresh from the dryer warm. Not sunlight through a window warm. Body warm. I frowned and ran my thumb along the turtle's belly, just to prove I was imagining it. The fabric gave under my touch with a strange, soft resistance, like it wasn't fabric at all, like there was a layer beneath it that shouldn't exist in a toy. I snatched my hand back as if it had bitten me. What the hell? I pressed again, carefully, like I was testing an electric fence. The surface yielded in a way that made my skin prickle. The sensation wasn't pleasant. It wasn't painful. It was unsettling, too realistic, too responsive. I turned the turtle over and looked for seams, zippers, compartments. Maybe there was some novelty material, some gel insert, something meant to feel lifelike. But there was nothing. Just a stupid grin and Veronica's Sharpie insult. I gave the belly one more experimental pinch, gentle and quick, Like a nervous poke. And somewhere deep in my mind, I swore I heard a sharp intake of breath. Not in my apartment. In the world. I froze, turtle in my hands, listening to the silence like it might confess. Nothing happened. No sound. No vibration. Just that same wrong warmth under my fingers. I set it on the coffee table and backed away as if distance would make it normal. I barely slept. The next morning, I walked into the office with the turtle buried in my bag like contraband. Veronica was already there, but she didn't look like herself. She looked wrecked. Her makeup was flawless, but it couldn't hide the dark shadows under her eyes. Her posture was tight, shoulders lifted as if she'd been bracing all night. She kept shifting her weight, as if her own body felt unfamiliar. An intern approached her with the kind of naive kindness you only have before your first corporate betrayal. "Ms. Veronica? Are you okay?" the kid asked. "You look exhausted." Veronica's eyes snapped toward him like a trap springing shut. "I'm fine." The words weren't just sharp. They were frantic. She stormed into her office and slammed the door so hard the glass rattled. People exchanged looks. Someone raised their eyebrows. A quiet, amused buzz started to build. I stood at my desk, hands still on my bag strap. Then my mind did something I didn't like. It connected dots it had no right to connect. I waited until the office noise settled. Then, slowly, I reached into my bag, pulled the turtle out, and set it on my chair, out of sight behind my desk. My heart beat too loud. I pressed my thumb lightly to the turtle's belly. A second later, through Veronica's office door, I heard a choked sound, like someone startled awake from a nightmare. I went cold. I pressed again, barely more than a touch. Veronica's voice, muffled behind the door, hissed, "Stop." I stared down at the turtle as if it had grown teeth. No. No way. This was insane. This was stress. Sleep deprivation. My brain trying to make meaning out of nonsense because my life had been a punchline for 48 hours. I pulled my hand back and didn't touch it again. But my hands were shaking. Around lunch, I walked past the break room. The door was cracked. I heard someone inside, breathing hard, like they'd run upstairs, like their body was fighting itself. "Please," Veronica whispered. I don't understand." There was a pause. A soft, miserable sound, like frustration being forced to stay quiet. I didn't open the door. I didn't need to. My stomach sank as the truth landed, heavy and undeniable. The turtle wasn't a toy. It was a link. And I didn't know if Veronica had done it on purpose, or if she'd handed me something she didn't even understand, purely because her cruelty had outrun her caution. That night, I didn't go home angry. I went home careful. I set the turtle on my kitchen counter like it was evidence. I stared at it the way you stare at a snake you've found in your house, trying to decide if it's more dangerous to move it or leave it. My phone buzzed at midnight. Caller ID, Veronica. I answered, keeping my voice flat. "It's late. Is it you?" Her voice was tight, furious, threaded with something like fear. "Are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Don't play dumb." Her breath hitched. "Someone has been messing with me. All night. Like I'm being." She swallowed the word like it tasted bad, like I'm being touched. Like I can't get away from it. My grip tightened around the phone. "I'm at home. Alone. What are you talking about?" Silence, then her voice dropped. "You took the turtle." I looked at the counter. The turtle's stitched grin looked smug now, like it had secrets. "You gave me the turtle," I said slowly. "Because I wanted to humiliate you," she snapped, and then, like she couldn't believe she'd admitted it, her voice went even colder. "But this isn't a joke. I didn't touch the turtle. I didn't move. I barely breathed." "Veronica," I said, and my tone changed without me meaning it to, "did you know what it was?" A pause. That was answer enough. My anger flared, hot and immediate, anger at her cruelty, at the unfairness of my week, at the way she could weaponize my heartbreak at noon and then call me at midnight like she was the victim. But underneath it was something worse, a sense of danger. Because if that turtle did what I thought it did, then this wasn't just office warfare anymore. This was a trap with supernatural teeth. "I'm not doing anything to you," I said, carefully. "And I'm not interested in whatever sick game you think this is." "It has to be you," she said, voice shaking now. "It started after you left with it." My eyes narrowed. "Listen to me. If you show up at my door in the middle of the night, if you accuse me of something I didn't do, if you try to twist this into a story where I'm the villain, I will go to HR. I will go to legal. And I will bring every single thing you've done to me for the last 5 years. Her breath came fast, like she was trying not to panic. Just make it stop. I can't, I lied, because I wasn't ready to admit the truth out loud, even to myself. And even if I could, you don't get to call me at midnight and order me around like I'm your property. A beat of silence. Then, softer, strained, what do you want? I stared at the turtle. I thought about my desk. About the Sharpie word. About the whispers in the office. About the intern's face when Veronica snapped at him. About 5 years of calculated pressure designed to make me crack. I wanted revenge. A stupid, human part of me wanted it badly. But I didn't want to become the thing Veronica accused me of being. I didn't want to cross a line I couldn't uncross. So I chose the only kind of power I could live with. I want this to end, I said. In writing. With witnesses. What? You want the turtle back? Fine. Tomorrow. In the office. In front of HR. My voice stayed even. You'll explain what you gave me, why you gave it to me, and you'll retract the slander you spread about my personal life. You'll stop targeting me. You'll put it in writing that you've created a hostile work environment. And you'll accept whatever consequences come with that. Her voice went sharp again, but it wasn't confident. You can't prove anything. I looked at the turtle's belly. Yes, I said softly. I can. The line went quiet, and then I heard it, something small and raw in her breathing, like she finally realized she'd handed a weapon to the one person she couldn't afford to arm. Don't, she whispered. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. You did. I hung up. I didn't touch the turtle all night. Not once. Because I'd learned something terrifying. Power like this didn't just change what you could do. It changed who you were tempted to become. The next morning, I walked into the office with the turtle sealed inside a clear plastic storage bag, like it belonged in an evidence locker. I didn't go to my desk first. I went straight to HR. And for the first time in 5 years, Veronica wasn't the one looking down at me from the top of the ladder. She was the one staring at the ground, trying to figure out how to climb out of the hole she'd dug with her own hands. HR sat on the 12th floor, tucked behind a glass wall that always made me feel like I was walking into an aquarium. Bright lights. Beige carpet. The kind of silence that pretends it's neutral. I stepped into the waiting area with a clear plastic storage bag in my hand. The turtle inside looked obscene in the sterile air, neon green, stitched smile, the Sharpie insult still loud even without sound. Cuck. I kept the bag flat against my leg like it was evidence in a trial. Because it was. The receptionist glanced up, smile automatic. Can I help you? My name is Jack Lawson, I said. I need to report a hostile work environment. Immediately. Something in my tone must have snapped her out of autopilot, because her eyes flicked to the bag, then back to my face. One moment. She disappeared through a door. The waiting room clock made tiny, polite clicks. I didn't sit. I stood there and watched the hallway like it might spit Veronica back out at any second. After 2 minutes, the door opened again and a woman stepped out, mid-40s, neat twist of dark hair, sharp glasses. She had the steady posture of someone who'd had 100 people cry in her office and learned to keep her shoulders level. Jack? She asked. I nodded. I'm Angela Ruiz. HR director. Come with me. Her office smelled like peppermint tea and printer ink. There were framed certifications on the wall and a little bowl of wrapped candies on her desk that looked untouched. She gestured to a chair. Have a seat. I sat. The plastic bag crinkled softly when I set it on her desk. Angela didn't recoil, but her eyes narrowed as soon as she read the word on the turtle shell. That was given to you? Yesterday, I said. By Veronica Hale. In front of my team. Angela's mouth tightened. Tell me exactly what happened. Start from the beginning. So I did. I kept it clean. Factual. Times. Names. Where people were sitting. Who looked up. Who didn't. I told her about Veronica broadcasting my breakup like it was a company memo. I told her about the turtle, the word, the laughter that tried to disguise itself as discomfort. Then I paused, because the next part sounded insane even inside my own head. Angela watched me. Go on. There's more, I said carefully. And I need you to hear it without interrupting me. Her expression didn't change, but she nodded once. Okay. I slid the bag a few inches closer to her. The turtle's stitched eyes stared up at the ceiling like it didn't care who believed what. I took it home, I said. I didn't want it on my desk. And when I touched it. Angela raised a hand slightly. Touched it how? I swallowed. Like you'd touch a stuffed animal. I noticed it felt warm. Too warm. So I pressed the belly. Just testing it. Angela's brows drew together. And this morning, Veronica came in looking like she hadn't slept. She was shaken. She snapped at an intern for asking if she was okay. She slammed her office door. I held Angela's gaze. So I tested something. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I touched the turtle again. Lightly. And through her office door, I heard her make a sound like she was startled. Like she'd been hit by something she didn't expect. Angela didn't blink. She didn't scoff. She just waited. My phone rang at midnight, I continued. Veronica. She accused me of messing with her. She said it started when I left the office with the turtle. Angela's voice stayed even. What did she mean by messing with her? I exhaled. She said it felt like someone was touching her. Like she couldn't get away from it. The air between us went still. Angela leaned back slowly in her chair, as if she needed a little more distance from the desk without making it obvious. She looked at the turtle again. Then she looked at me. Jack. Are you telling me you believe this toy is somehow connected to her physically? I'm telling you I don't know what I believe, I said. I'm telling you something happened that I can't explain. And she called me because she knew I had it. And she sounded scared. Angela's fingers tapped once against her notepad. Do you have any proof of the call? I have the call log. I pulled my phone out and placed it on her desk. Timestamped. And I can forward the voicemail if she left one later. She didn't. She just called. Angela stared at the phone for a moment like it might turn into something else. Then she stood. Stay here, she said. She walked to her door, opened it a crack, and spoke quietly to someone outside. A minute later, she came back in holding a small conference room keycard and a second person followed her in, tall man, suit, legal face. He carried a tablet and wore an expression that said he didn't enjoy surprises before coffee. Jack, Angela said, this is Martin Cho from legal. Martin nodded politely, but his eyes went straight to the turtle. He read the word on the shell and his jaw set. Angela didn't waste time. Jack has filed a complaint regarding Veronica Hale. There is an additional element he believes may be relevant to safety and liability. Martin's gaze shifted to me. Okay. I told it again. Shorter. Cleaner. No dramatics. When I finished, Martin let out a slow breath through his nose. First, he said, the written insult and the public discussion of your personal life are both serious. That alone is enough for immediate action. He glanced at the turtle again. Second. The rest of this. I know how it sounds, I cut in, then forced myself to calm down. I know. Martin's eyes sharpened a fraction. I'm not calling you a liar. I'm saying we handle it in steps. Angela nodded. Veronica will be brought in. Today. Martin looked at me. Do you feel unsafe? The question landed heavy. I feel like I'm standing next to something I don't understand, I said. And it's connected to someone who hates me. Martin held my gaze. Understood. Angela picked up the bag by 2 fingers like it might stain her skin. We'll secure this. No, I said quickly. They both looked at me. If you take it, I said, and you move it, touch it, whatever. I don't know what that does to her. And I don't know what that could look like. I don't want to be responsible for anything happening to her because you wanted to inspect evidence. Angela's expression flickered, surprise, then something like reluctant respect. Martin's voice went quieter. Jack. Are you saying you've tested it enough to believe contact causes an effect? I stared at the bag. Yes. Silence. The kind that makes your skin feel too tight. Martin set his tablet down. Okay. New plan. He looked at Angela. We bring Veronica in. We confront the harassment. We document. We separate. We place her on leave pending investigation. Angela nodded. Martin looked back at me. And this item stays with you. But you do not touch it. I haven't, I said. Not since last night. Angela's eyes softened just a fraction. Good. Keep it sealed. Martin added, if anything escalates, you call security. You call us. You call the police if you need to. Understood? I nodded, throat tight. Angela stood. Stay in this room. We'll use the conference room across the hall. She led me out and into a small windowless room that smelled like dry erase markers. There was a long table, 3 chairs, and a speakerphone mounted on the wall. Angela pointed to a chair. Sit. Do not leave until we come get you. I sat. The turtle sat on the table in its clear bag between my hands like a landmine. I kept my fingers laced together so I wouldn't accidentally brush it. Through the wall, I heard muffled footsteps. Voices. A door opening. Then, sharp heels. Even through drywall, I recognized the rhythm. Veronica walked like she was always late to her own power. A few seconds later, the conference room door across the hall shut. The silence stretched. Then Angela's voice, faint but firm, Veronica, we need to discuss a complaint that was filed this morning. Veronica's voice cut through, sharper even at low volume. A complaint? Are you kidding me? Martin's voice followed. Calm. This is not a joke. Please take a seat. A chair scraped. I stared at the turtle's stitched grin and felt my stomach twist. Because part of me wanted to touch it. Not in the way Veronica had accused. Not like a bully. Like a lever. Just to confirm I wasn't hallucinating. Just to prove to myself I wasn't losing my mind. My hands tightened together. Don't. A minute passed. 2. I heard Angela say, on January 13th, at approximately. Veronica laughed. One hard sound. Oh my God. Are we really doing this? Martin cut in. Yes. Then Angela's voice, did you give Jack Lawson a stuffed animal with a derogatory term written on it? A pause. Veronica's voice dropped into something smoother. It was a joke. A joke, Angela repeated, flat. Veronica sighed dramatically. It's a turtle. He'll survive. Martin's voice went colder. It was placed on his desk in front of coworkers with a slur written on it. That's not a joke. That's harassment. Another pause. Longer. Then Veronica said, fine. I did it. Happy? Are we done? Angela's voice didn't move. No. We're not. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes for 1 second. She admitted it. 5 years of subtle cruelty, and she finally slipped on record. Then, through the wall, I heard Angela say something that made the hair on my arms lift. Veronica, did you knowingly give him an item that causes physical distress to you when handled? The room went dead silent. My eyes opened. My breath stopped. Veronica didn't respond right away. When she finally did, her voice wasn't confident anymore. What the hell is he telling you? Martin's voice was razor calm. Answer the question. Veronica snapped, this is ridiculous. Angela didn't budge. Did you know what it was? A long, awful pause. In my small room, the turtle's stitched grin looked less stupid and more smug. Veronica's voice came out tight. No. Martin didn't miss a beat. That was not an answer. Veronica exhaled, and for the first time, I heard the crack underneath her authority. I didn't know it would do this. Angela's voice softened slightly, not sympathy, but a different kind of control. What did you think it was? Veronica said nothing. Martin spoke. Where did you get it? Still nothing. Angela leaned in, her tone sharpening. Veronica, this is no longer an HR issue alone. If you introduced an item into the workplace that affects someone physically without their consent, we are dealing with serious liability. Where did you get it? I heard Veronica swallow. It sounded loud through the wall. It was a gift, she said finally. From someone. Martin, who? Veronica, I don't know. Martin cut her off. You don't know, or you don't want to say. Veronica's voice rose. It was from a vendor. A novelty thing. One of those weird online stores. I didn't order a. Whatever he thinks this is. Angela's voice stayed steady. So you didn't personalize it? Veronica hesitated. I wrote on it. And you gave it to him, Angela said. At work. Silence. Then Veronica's voice changed, less aggressive, more defensive, like she'd realized her anger wasn't protecting her anymore. Is he, she started, then stopped, like she couldn't stand to say it. Is he doing it on purpose? Martin's reply was sharp. Jack is not in this room. Another pause. Then Veronica's voice went very low. I can't keep feeling it. It's humiliating. The word hit me like a shove. Humiliating. Not painful. Not dangerous. Humiliating. That was the thing she feared. It made something in my chest go hard and cold. Because she'd built her whole career on humiliating other people. She'd turned it into a language. A hobby. A form of sport. Now she finally spoke it as a victim, and it didn't sound noble. It sounded like karma with teeth. Angela's voice softened again, but not kindly. Veronica, you are being placed on administrative leave effective immediately. You are not to contact Jack Lawson. You are not to enter his workspace. You are not to retaliate in any form. Veronica's voice snapped back. You can't. Martin, we can. And we are. A chair scraped back hard. I heard Veronica stand. Her heels moved. Fast. Angry. The conference room door opened. For a split second, through the small window in my own door, I saw her pass in the hallway, perfect hair, perfect blazer, eyes too bright like she was trying not to break in public. Then she stopped. She turned her head. And her gaze locked straight onto my door like she could feel me through wood and drywall. My throat went dry. I didn't move. She took one step toward me. Angela's voice cut in behind her. Veronica. Keep walking. Veronica's lips parted like she had something cruel and clever loaded. But she didn't fire it. She just stared at my door with a kind of hatred that looked different now, less confident, more frantic. Like she'd realized the world had shifted, and she didn't know where her footing went. Then she turned and walked away. The hallway swallowed her. A minute later, Angela came into my room with Martin right behind her. Angela's face was controlled, but her eyes looked slightly less human than before, like she'd seen something she couldn't file neatly. It's done, she said. She admitted to the harassment and to writing on the item. She claimed she didn't know its nature. Martin sat across from me. Jack, we're going to take immediate steps to protect you. You'll be moved to a different team temporarily. You will have no direct reporting line to her. We will start a formal investigation into her conduct over the last 5 years. Angela added, we also want you to go home today. With pay. I blinked. Go home. Yes, Angela said. Because I don't like the variables we can't control here. Martin's gaze flicked to the turtle. And because this is not normal. No kidding. Angela hesitated, then said, Jack. I need you to answer honestly. I nodded. Have you used it, she asked, to cause her distress? I stared at the plastic bag. The truth sat on my tongue like something bitter. No, I said. I tested it twice. That's it. I haven't done anything beyond confirming it. Martin studied my face like he was looking for cracks. Then he nodded once. Good. Angela's voice went softer. Because I need you to understand something. I waited. If this is real, she said, carefully choosing each word, then you are holding an object that can be used to control another person's body without their consent. My stomach turned. And that, Martin said flatly, is not a workplace issue. That's a criminal issue. Even if she started it. Even if she deserved consequences. I swallowed. I know. Angela leaned forward slightly. Do you feel tempted to use it? The question hit too close. For a second, I could see it, Veronica flinching every time she tried to speak over me. Veronica stumbling through meetings, unable to keep her mask on. Veronica learning, finally, what it felt like to have power taken from you without permission. My hands clenched under the table. Then I pictured myself in the mirror afterward. A man who'd crossed a line because it was easy. A man who'd used a weapon just because he could. I exhaled slowly. Yes, I admitted. I feel tempted. Angela didn't look shocked. She looked relieved. Thank you, she said. That honesty matters. Martin stood. Here's what we do next. He spoke like he was laying out a blueprint. Step 1, you go home. You keep that item sealed. You do not touch it. You do not throw it out. You do not destroy it. I opened my mouth. He held up a hand. Not yet. If it's tied to her, you don't know what damage destruction could cause. You don't know if it's linked both ways. You don't know if it could harm you. Or her. Angela added, you also don't know who else it's linked to. Or what else it might be capable of. A chill crawled up my spine. Martin continued, Step 2, we involve an outside investigator. Not for the supernatural part, we're not putting that word in any report. For the harassment and potential misconduct. Angela nodded. We'll get statements from your team. Pull security footage. Review emails. Audit your performance history and any disciplinary notes. If she's been building a paper trail against you, we'll find it. I stared at them. And the turtle? Martin's expression turned hard. The turtle is your safety issue now. Which means you need to treat it like a loaded gun. My throat tightened. I didn't ask for this. Angela's eyes softened. I know. Martin tapped his tablet, then looked back at me. One more thing. I waited. Veronica claimed she got it from an online vendor, he said. We're going to request her purchase records. But if she's lying, if someone gave it to her intentionally, then this wasn't random. My skin prickled. Then you were targeted, Martin finished. The word hung in the air. Targeted. Not humiliated. Not bullied. Hunted. I glanced at the turtle. Its stitched grin didn't look stupid anymore. It looked like bait. Angela stood. I'll have security escort you to your desk to collect your things. You'll leave through the side exit. I nodded numbly. Martin added, Jack, if she contacts you, you do not respond. You screenshot. You document. You call us. I stood, the plastic bag crackling softly as I picked it up. The turtle's warmth pressed against the thin layer of plastic like it was alive. I hated that my hands shook. Security walked me to my desk like I was the one being removed, not the person who'd been harassed. Coworkers stared too hard and then looked away too fast. Nobody spoke. Nobody apologized. Nobody admitted they'd heard the word and done nothing. I grabbed my laptop, my notebook, my charger. I left. The elevator ride down felt too quiet. Like the building was holding its breath. Outside, Chicago winter slapped me awake with cold air that cut straight through my coat. I got into my car and set the turtle on the passenger seat, still sealed in its bag. I stared at it. Then I drove home. The entire way, I kept imagining Veronica's face in the hallway, how her eyes had looked when she realized the ladder she'd climbed to stand above me had turned into a trapdoor. At my apartment, I put the turtle on my kitchen counter again. Evidence. Weapon. Curse. I stepped back and tried to think like the version of myself that didn't believe in impossible things. Maybe it was some remote-controlled prank. Some sensory device. Some tech I didn't understand. But no matter what explanation I tried to build, one truth stayed stubbornly in place. It reacted. And it reacted to her. My phone buzzed. I flinched hard enough my shoulder ached. Unknown number. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. Then a text came through. No name. No context. Just a single line. Stop pretending you don't know what you're holding. My blood went cold. A second text followed, as if the sender had been watching my screen. If you bring it back to HR, you won't like what happens next. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then my gaze slid to the turtle. The stitched grin looked the same. But now it felt like it was smiling at me on purpose. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a photo. A screenshot of an order confirmation. A neon green turtle plush. The same one. And beneath it, a store name I'd never seen before, letters that looked like someone had tried to make them cute, harmless, normal. But there was one detail that made my stomach drop straight through the floor. The shipping address. It wasn't Veronica's. It was mine. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the turtle on my counter, sealed in plastic, radiating that wrong warmth like a heartbeat. And for the first time since the word cuck hit my desk like a verdict, I understood something I hadn't wanted to see. This wasn't just a link between me and Veronica. Someone had linked me to it first. Someone had put it in my path. And they were still close enough to watch what I did next. I didn't touch it. I didn't even step closer. I stood there in my kitchen with my phone in one hand and my pulse hammering in my throat, staring at a neon green turtle sealed in plastic like it could suddenly blink. The screenshot showed my address in clean, typed lines. My name. My apartment. Like whoever ordered it had always planned for it to end up here, on my counter, in my life, in my hands. I backed away until my shoulders hit the wall. I forced myself to breathe through my nose, slow and quiet, like breathing too loudly might give me away. Then I did the only thing I could trust myself to do. I called Martin. It rang once. Twice. He picked up on the third ring, voice clipped. Jack. I got a message, I said. From an unknown number. They said I'm pretending I don't know what I'm holding. They sent a screenshot of the order confirmation. A pause. I heard him sit up, the shift of fabric. What screenshot? It's the turtle, I said. And it was shipped to my address. Silence. Then, do not touch it. I'm not. Good, Martin said, voice going sharp with focus. Take a photo of the texts. Do not reply. Forward them to me. I did, hands unsteady. Now listen carefully, he said. Angela and I aren't equipped for whatever this is. But we are equipped for harassment, stalking, and intimidation. If someone is monitoring you, we treat this as a threat. My mouth went dry. What do I do? I'm sending a security contractor to your building, he said. They'll sit in the lobby. In the meantime, lock your door. Close your blinds. Don't post. Don't answer unknown numbers. And Jack, if you feel unsafe, you leave. You go to a public place. I looked at the turtle again. Okay, I whispered. When I hung up, the apartment felt too quiet. Every hum of the refrigerator sounded like a footstep. Every tiny creak in the building sounded like someone testing a door. I checked my lock twice. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the forwarded screenshot again, zooming in like that could turn it into an explanation. The store name was nonsense. The payment method was masked. But there was a tiny line I hadn't noticed before. Special edition, empathy link. It looked like a gimmick label. But my skin didn't care. My skin remembered the wrong warmth. My skin remembered Veronica's muffled stop. My phone buzzed again. A new text. If you want to know how it works, touch it again. My stomach lurched. I didn't reply. I stared at the turtle. My hands curled into fists at my sides. Touch it again. The message was bait. A dare. A test. And the worst part was the truth sitting behind my ribs like a stone. Part of me wanted to. Not to hurt Veronica. Not to play God. But to understand. Because not understanding was its own kind of cage. I stayed where I was. Minutes crawled by. Then my building's intercom buzzed. Jack Lawson? A voice said. Calm. Professional. Security. Martin Cho sent me. I'm in the lobby. Relief hit me so hard my knees went weak. I pressed the button. I'm coming down. I didn't bring the turtle. I left it on the counter, sealed, untouched, like leaving it behind might strip it of power. In the elevator mirror, I looked pale. Older than I'd been yesterday. Like my face was trying to decide what kind of story this was going to become. In the lobby, a man in a dark coat nodded at me. He didn't look like a bouncer. He looked like someone who spent his life watching rooms without being noticed. I'm Deacon, he said. Martin briefed me. You got threats? I nodded. Deacon's eyes flicked to the front doors, then the mail area, then the security cameras. Anyone you recognize around the building? No. Any recent deliveries besides the turtle? No. He studied me for a beat. You live alone? Yes. He nodded once, as if confirming a theory. Okay. Here's what we do. You don't go back up alone. We check your floor. We check your door. We check your windows. Then you pack a bag and you stay somewhere else tonight. My throat tightened. Somewhere else? Yes, Deacon said, as if it was obvious. Because whoever texted you wants you isolated with that thing. The sentence made something cold settle in my chest. He was right. This wasn't random cruelty. This was choreography. We went back up together. Deacon walked slightly behind me, like he was letting me be the resident while he stayed the shadow. Nothing looked disturbed. My door hadn't been touched. Inside, everything looked exactly the same. Except the turtle. It sat on my counter like it had been waiting. Deacon didn't go near it. He didn't have to. You're going to take what you need, he said. Clothes. Charger. Wallet. Then we leave. I nodded. I moved fast, trying not to look at the turtle too long, trying not to let my mind start bargaining. As I zipped my bag, my laptop chimed. A new email. From, no reply at. Something. Subject, return authorization. My blood went cold. I clicked it without thinking, then immediately regretted it. The email was short, corporate, polite in that dead-eyed way automated messages always are. Return requested. Pickup scheduled. Time, 6 p.m. Today. I looked at the clock. 5:41. Deacon saw my face change. What? I turned my laptop toward him. He read it once, then again, slower. "Okay," he said quietly. "That's not an accident." My voice came out thin. "How do they have my email?" Deacon didn't answer. He was already scanning the room again, eyes moving like cameras. "Jack," he said, "did you use your work email to register anything related to that toy?" "No." He nodded. "Then someone has access to your devices or your accounts. Or they're inside a system that touches both." My stomach twisted. Work. Veronica. The office. This had started there. It wasn't just a turtle. It was a hook thrown into my life. Deacon pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Martin. And I'm calling building management to lock down the lobby. No pickups. No couriers upstairs." I watched him talk in short, controlled phrases, like a man reciting a checklist. When he finished, he looked at me. "We're leaving now." I glanced at the turtle. Something moved in my chest. Not fear. Anger. Because I finally saw it clearly. This wasn't about humiliating me. That was Veronica's hobby. This was about controlling me. And whoever it was had used Veronica like a delivery service, relying on her cruelty to do what they needed. I took one step toward the counter. Deacon's voice sharpened. "Don't." "I'm not touching it," I said, and the steadiness in my tone surprised even me. "But I'm not leaving it here either." Deacon hesitated. "If a pickup is scheduled," I said, "that means someone expects to take it back. And if it leaves my apartment, I lose the only leverage I have." Deacon stared at me, measuring. Then he nodded once, like he didn't like it but he understood. "Keep it sealed," he said. "And you don't touch it. Not even through the plastic." "I won't." I slid the entire plastic bag into a hard-sided lunch cooler I hadn't used in months, then snapped it shut like a lock. It was stupid. It was symbolic. But it made me feel like I was putting a lid on something that wanted air. We left. Downstairs, the lobby felt tense. 2 building staff members hovered near the desk, whispering. Deacon spoke to them, then guided me outside into the fading winter light. We got into his car. And as we pulled away from the building, my phone buzzed again. A text. "You can run, Jack. But the link doesn't care where you are." My hands went cold around the phone. Deacon glanced at it. "Don't answer." I didn't. We drove to a hotel on the north side, quiet, clean, anonymous. Deacon checked me in under his company's name. He walked me to my door, then stood in the hallway long enough for the cameras to record his face and presence. "If anyone calls you," he said, "you let it go to voicemail. If anyone knocks, you don't open. You call me." I nodded. He paused, then added, "You're not crazy, Jack. You're dealing with something deliberate. That matters." When he left, I stood in the room with my bag by the bed and the cooler on the desk. The turtle was inside. Sealed. Untouched. And yet the air still felt like it was holding its breath. At 6:03, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring. It stopped. Then a voicemail notification popped up. I stared at it for 3 seconds. Then I played it. Veronica's voice spilled into the room, shaking. "Jack," she whispered. "Please. Please tell me you didn't." She swallowed, audibly. "They came to my apartment." My stomach dropped. "They said it was a return pickup," she continued, voice cracking. "They had a paper. They had my name. They said it was a recall. They said it was dangerous." Her breathing hitched, ragged. "And when I tried to close the door, they..." She stopped. The silence that followed was worse than any word. Then, very softly, she said, "I think I made someone angry. Someone bigger than me. And Jack, I think you were never the real target." A chill crawled up my spine. The message ended with a small, broken sound, like she'd covered her mouth to keep from making noise. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email. From Angela. Subject, urgent, vendor inquiry. I opened it with shaking fingers. Angela wrote in quick, clipped lines. "We pulled Veronica's purchasing records. No transaction exists for the turtle. However, we found a vendor invoice submitted to accounting last quarter labeled promotional materials, team engagement. It was approved by your department head." I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. My department head was not Veronica. My department head was Ethan Crane. The man who'd hired me. The man who'd congratulated me on performance metrics. The man who'd always smiled like he was above the drama. I scrolled. Angela's next line hit like a punch. And Jack, Ethan Crane requested a meeting with you tomorrow morning. Off-site. He said it's about settling things privately. My blood went cold in a new, sharper way. Privately. Off-site. No cameras. No HR. No witnesses. I could suddenly see it. The hidden hand behind Veronica's cruelty. The way she always had just enough institutional cover to keep doing what she did. The way complaints died quietly. The way promotions went to people who kept their mouths shut. Veronica wasn't the architect. She was the blade. And someone else had been holding the handle. My phone buzzed again. A text. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Come alone. Bring the turtle. I stared at the words until my vision tunneled. Then my gaze shifted to the cooler. The leverage. The trap. The link. My hands curled into fists. I didn't want revenge. I wanted out. But people like Ethan didn't let you out. They let you disappear. I called Martin again. He answered instantly. Jack. They want a meeting, I said. Ethan Crane. Off-site. Tomorrow. He texted me. There was a beat of silence that told me Martin already knew what that meant. Okay, he said, voice turning steel. You're not going. I think I have to, I said, and the words tasted like rust. Because if I don't, they'll escalate. They already went to Veronica's apartment. Martin's voice went hard. Then we control the meeting. We don't refuse. We reframe. My throat tightened. How? We make it legal, he said. We make it public. We make it witnessed. And we make sure you don't go in without protection. I swallowed. He said, come alone. Martin's laugh was short and humorless. People say a lot of things when they're used to being obeyed. He paused, then said, Jack, you did something today that matters. What? You didn't touch it, he said. You didn't become him. That means you can win this without losing yourself. I stared at the cooler. My hands were still shaking. But my voice steadied. Tell me what to do. The next morning, I didn't go to Ethan's cute little coffee shop across from the river. I went to a conference room at a downtown legal office that Martin had booked under a neutral name. Glass walls. Cameras in the hallway. A receptionist who logged every visitor. 2 security guards near the elevator. Witnesses, even if nobody spoke. I sat at the table with the cooler in front of me and my hands folded tight. Martin sat to my left. Angela sat to my right. And Deacon stood by the door like a shadow that had learned how to look friendly. At 9:07, the door opened. Ethan Crane walked in like he owned the floor. His smile was easy. His suit was expensive. His eyes were calm, until they flicked to Martin, to Angela, to the cooler. The smile didn't falter, but the temperature in it dropped. Jack, he said smoothly. This is unexpected. Good, Martin said, and his voice was polite in the way a locked door is polite. We like unexpected when someone tries to arrange private meetings with an employee who has filed a formal complaint. Ethan's gaze slid to me. Jack, you don't have to do this. I met his eyes and felt something inside me settle. I'd spent years trying to survive by being invisible. I was done. I didn't, I said quietly. You did. Ethan's smile tightened. I don't know what you think you know. Angela leaned forward. We know you approved an invoice for promotional materials tied to an unverified vendor. We know that vendor name matches the label attached to the item Veronica Hale used to harass Jack Lawson. We know you attempted to bypass HR procedure by calling for a private meeting. Ethan's eyes sharpened. You're making a lot of assumptions. Martin nodded. Then clear them up. Under oath, if necessary. Ethan's gaze flicked to the cooler again. And that was the tell. Not fear. Calculation. Like a man looking at a tool he wanted back. I'd like to speak to Jack alone, he said, voice still smooth. Man to man. Deacon didn't move. Martin didn't blink. No. Ethan's smile finally slipped, just enough. Jack, he said, voice softening, trying a different angle. Do you really want to ruin your career over a toy? The word toy sounded ridiculous in his mouth. I stared at him. Then I reached forward, not touching the turtle, not opening the cooler, just resting my palm on the lid like a promise. Ethan's eyes followed the movement like a reflex. I didn't need supernatural proof anymore. I had human proof. Only one kind of person watched that lid like it could end them. You don't care about my career, I said. You never did. Ethan's smile reappeared, thin. You're emotional. You've been through a breakup. Your boss embarrassed you. It's unfortunate. I leaned forward slightly, voice calm. You picked the wrong week, I said. Because you're right about one thing. Ethan's eyes narrowed. I am emotional, I said. But I'm not weak. For the first time, Ethan's composure cracked in a way only people with power understand. Not anger. Not panic. Annoyance. The irritation of a lock that won't open. Fine, he said, dropping the mask entirely. You want a deal? Martin's voice went flat. No. Ethan ignored him and looked at me. You walk away. You sign a separation agreement. A very generous one. You give the item back. You forget all of this ever happened. Angela's eyes went icy. That's an admission. Ethan smiled at her like she was a child. It's an offer. I stared at him. And in my mind, I saw the last 5 years like a timeline finally coming into focus. The pressure. The sabotage attempts that had always stopped just short of consequences. The way Veronica always survived scrutiny like she had a shield. She did. Ethan. He'd weaponized her ambition and cruelty because she was useful. And when she got sloppy, he was ready to cut her loose and retrieve the tool. I exhaled slowly. No, I said. Ethan blinked. Excuse me? No deal, I said. No private settlement. No silence. You're not getting it back. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You don't know what you're holding. I tilted my head slightly. Neither do you. That landed. For the first time, Ethan looked uncertain. Because it was true. If he truly controlled it, he wouldn't be negotiating. He'd be ordering. He needed my consent. Or my fear. I gave him neither. Martin slid a folder across the table. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this room. You will have no contact with Jack Lawson. You will preserve all records related to vendor approvals, accounting submissions, and communications with Veronica Hale. Any deletion will be treated as spoliation. Ethan's jaw tightened. You can't. Angela cut in. We can. And we are. Ethan looked at me one last time, eyes sharp as broken glass. You think you're safe, he said quietly. I didn't raise my voice. I think you're exposed, I said. Ethan's lips curled, just barely. Then he stood and walked out without another word. The moment the door shut, my shoulders sagged like they'd been holding up the ceiling. Angela let out a slow breath. Martin looked at me. You did the right thing. I stared at the cooler. My hands were still trembling. What happens now? I asked. Martin's expression turned grim. Now we involve law enforcement. And we involve cyber. Because someone is in your accounts. And someone is sending you threats. Angela nodded. And Veronica? I swallowed. What about her? Angela's face tightened. She's a perpetrator of harassment. But she's also a witness. And potentially another victim. The word victim felt strange in my mouth when I thought of Veronica. But I remembered her voicemail. They came to my apartment. She had sounded afraid. Not because she suddenly grew a conscience. Because her own cruelty had finally handed her a monster she couldn't charm. I sat back. A strange, heavy quiet settled in my chest. Not peace. Not yet. But something like a door clicking shut. A boundary. Martin stood. One last thing, Jack. What? He nodded at the cooler. We need to get rid of it. My stomach dropped. You said not to destroy it. Not destroy, he corrected. Secure. He glanced at Deacon. Deacon nodded once. There are places that handle unusual items, Martin said carefully. Not through HR. Not through the company. Through professionals who don't ask the wrong questions. I stared at him. It sounded insane. And yet, nothing about my life had been sane since a neon green turtle hit my desk like a verdict. I nodded slowly. Okay. We drove to a storage facility on the edge of the city, private, high security, the kind used by law firms and banks. No one joked. No one smiled. Deacon carried the cooler like it was a bomb. They put it into a reinforced locker inside a climate-controlled room with cameras that never blinked. A chain of custody log. 2 signatures. A key that stayed with Martin. A second key that stayed with Deacon. A rule, never open it alone. When it was done, we stood in the hallway outside the secure room. The air felt lighter. Not because the danger was gone. Because it was contained. As we walked out, my phone buzzed one last time that day. Unknown number. 1 sentence. You chose paperwork over power. Weak. I stared at the word weak and felt something in me unclench. Because that message wasn't a threat. It was disappointment. And disappointment only comes from someone who expected you to behave differently. Someone who expected you to touch the turtle. To use it. To prove you were as rotten as they were. I didn't reply. I turned my phone face down. Outside, the winter wind cut clean across the parking lot, sharp enough to make my eyes water. I looked up at the gray Chicago sky and let myself breathe all the way in, like I was taking back space inside my own body. Veronica lost her job that week. Not because she suddenly became a better person. Because her mask finally slipped on record. Ethan didn't get fired right away. Men like him never fall fast. They fall when there's nowhere left to land. But the investigation started. The audit started. And once people began looking, they kept finding things. Invoices that didn't make sense. Approvals that didn't match. Complaints that had been resolved without resolution. Veronica tried to call me twice. I didn't answer. The third time, she left a voicemail. No cruelty. No sarcasm. Just a tight, trembling sentence that sounded like it hurt to say. I'm sorry. I didn't know if she meant it. I didn't know if it mattered. What mattered was this. I hadn't touched the turtle again. Not once. I hadn't let a supernatural weapon decide who I was going to become. Because power doesn't reveal your strength. It reveals your appetite. And mine, no matter how angry I'd been, no matter how badly I'd wanted to watch Veronica flinch, wasn't for control. It was for freedom. Months later, after Ethan's name finally surfaced in the kind of reports he couldn't charm his way out of, Martin called me. They're asking again, he said. If you want to press further. I looked at my new desk and my new job, at the sunlight cutting across clean papers, at the quiet life I'd built by refusing to be bait. What happens if I do? I asked. Martin exhaled. It gets uglier before it gets better. I thought of the turtle locked away in a reinforced room, waiting like a temptation that never got to win. Then I thought of myself, finally able to sleep. I'm not afraid of ugly, I said. A pause. Then Martin's voice softened. Okay. I hung up and stared out the window. In the reflection, I didn't look like a man hiding in his shell. I looked like a man who'd learned something terrifying and simple. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't striking back. Sometimes it's refusing the kind of power that would make you unrecognizable. And whoever had mailed that turtle to my address, whoever had wanted me to become a monster in a neat suit. They didn't get their story. I did.